That's it for our news roundup. Let's now take a look at what's making the front pages of the French newspapers with Elena Casas. Good morning, Elena. So, what have you got for us to start with?
Good morning again, Claire. It's the markets against democracy. That's Libération's headline this morning. They're talking, of course, about the way that those new governments in Greece and Italy have been put in place, not via the ballot box, but via pressure from international markets. If we have a look at the editorial on the inside, they say that people around Europe feel dispossessed. They're not angry with their governments anymore. They're angry at a sense of powerlessness that they feel. They don't believe those governments can do anything in the face of pressure from the financial markets. But they do also point out that it's up to politicians. They made policies that made this economic crisis possible, and it's up to them to do something about it. They also talk to some bankers on the inside, Claire, and they say the same thing, that what the bankers do is just reacting to what politicians do. Market chaos is the result, they say, of politicians' incompetence.
So bankers feeling sorry for themselves then. Anyone else feeling sorry for them?
Le Figaro is actually, on their editorial, on their front page, they say the same thing, really, that these governments being put in place in Greece and Italy isn't the fault of the bankers. It was made inevitable by what they call the irresponsibility of politicians. And, of course, that it will lead to a restoration of democracy. They remind us that those two governments are only meant to be in place for a short time, and both countries should have a general election in the next couple of years.
That might not be much consolation, though, for people who are losing their jobs because of budget cuts, and that's something that L'Humanité is touching on when it comes to France.
Yes, they've got unemployment soaring, Pôle emploi cracking as their headline. Pôle emploi, of course, is the French employment agency. They have actually got a good story for France's economy, though, in there as well. They say, of course, that unemployment is soaring and France's services can't quite cope with it. But if we have a look inside, there is one story of some staff who managed to save their company. This is a factory in the southwest of France that was actually bought up by its staff when it was going to close down 2 years ago. They managed to convince an Italian company to buy it and to rehire 70% of the people who'd lost their jobs when it was going to close down. So the paper says that's a heartwarming story of what the staff can do to actually save their company when it looks like it might be collapsing.
Moving on from the economy, you're going to tell us about the Green Party. They're, of course, making headlines because they're trying to come to an agreement at the moment with the socialists.
Yeah, they've got until Saturday to come to some kind of electoral pact with François Hollande's socialists, but both sides have raised the tone a bit recently. Libération interviews the Green Party co-founder Daniel Cohn-Bendit today, and he says he's very unhappy with François Hollande, the socialist candidate's refusal to cooperate with them. He says he's completely refusing to back down on the idea of scrapping nuclear power, which the Greens are very much wedded to. And Cohn-Bendit says the Greens aren't prepared to get rid of their principles in exchange for having a few ministers in a socialist government, which is what François Hollande is offering them.
How much of a concern, though, is all things green to voters when the economy is in such a state?
Well, that's the thing. Have Green politicians actually missed their moment? That's what Le Monde is asking today. They're saying when people are so concerned about the economy, do Green politicians have anything to offer? Well, they've been talking to a whole bunch of different European politicians who had their European Green conference in Paris this last weekend, and they say, yes, they do. They've got fresh thinking that could bring Europe out of the economic crisis. They say that Green politicians have just as much to say about things like curbing bankers' bonuses as they do about stuff like nuclear energy, and they are rising in popularity across the continent. Not quite so much here, though. Green candidate Eva Joly has only got about 5% of voting intentions in recent polls.
And briefly, Le Figaro, some good news for environmentally friendly people?
Yes, well, you've heard about using cereal crops to replace petrol in cars. That was a bit controversial with some Green people who said that it was using cereal crops that could be used by people in the third world to eat. But now French biochemists, according to Le Figaro, have come up with chemicals found in flowering plants, food and even algae that could be used to substitute petrochemicals in plastics, cosmetics and agriculture.
OK, thanks very much for that. Look at the French newspapers, Elena Casas.